Thank you, Peter and Deede. Welcome to our online service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Stony Brook. This is our first service of 2021, so Happy New Year to everyone. I'm Deborah Little, and I serve this congregation as the Director of Religious Education. While many Northern Europeans, and many of us in the United States, celebrate gift giving to children with Santa Claus, in Italy, the children receive gifts from an elderly witch named La Befana. Here is her story, adapted from the telling by Tommy de Paola, with illustrations also by him. In a small house on the outskirts of a small village in Italy lived La Befana. She lived all alone, and she wasn't very friendly. If any people dared to knock at her door, she never asked them in. "I have no time for visiting," she would say. The children didn't like her either. "Cranky lady," they said, "and the way she's always sweeping." That was true. Every day, every morning and afternoon, La Befana would sweep with her broom. She swept her little house and her front step. She even swept her walk all the way down to the road. Sometimes a delicious smell of things baking came from her house. "Whom does she bake for?" her neighbors would ask. And some nights they thought they heard her singing lullabies, but they did not know for whom she sang. One evening, after eating dinner and sweeping, La Befana went to sleep. In the middle of the night, she woke up. The room was bright. La Befana got out of bed, crossed the cold floor, and opened the shutter to her window. A sudden burst of light poured into the room. In the eastern sky, she saw a brilliant star, which seemed to grow before her eyes. "Humph! How am I ever to get my sleep when the dark has turned to day?" All night she tossed and turned, not sleeping a wink. At dawn, La Befana got up, dressed, ate her breakfast, and swept her house, her front step, and the walk down to the road. Then she stopped and listened. "It's probably just the wind," she said, continuing to sweep. But she heard the bells again. "It's probably just the birds singing," she said, continuing to sweep. But once more, she heard the bells. Suddenly, over the hill came the most glorious procession La Befana had ever seen. Camels, horses, elephants, and people. Halfway back rode 3 royal-looking men, dressed in jeweled robes, wearing crowns upon their heads. The procession stopped, and the 3 kings came over to La Befana. "Please," said one of the kings in a royal voice, "is this the way to Bethlehem?" "How can I say? I've never heard of it," said La Befana, and she began to sweep. "We are searching for the child," said the second king. "Do you know of him?" "There are many children," replied La Befana, sweeping still. "But this one is a king," said the third king. "Our books have told us that when a bright new star appears, the child king will be born in Bethlehem." "The star I've seen, it kept me awake all night. Now excuse me, I have work to do," and she continued sweeping. The procession started up again, but a boy called to her saying, "You should come with us. The child has come to change the world. He comes for us, for the poor. We are bringing him gifts." La Befana paused, considering his words. "Coming to change the world? Coming for the poor? Well, heaven knows I am poor. Perhaps I should go see him. But what do I have to take him?" She returned to her house, took out butter and sugar and flour, and began to sing and bake. She baked all day. She didn't even sweep. La Befana filled a basket with all of the cakes, cookies, and candies she had made. put on a shawl and opened the door. I'll take my broom along to sweep the room clean, for the baby king's mother will be tired. But she stopped. She hadn't swept all day. So before leaving, she swept her house, her front step, and her walk, all the way down to the road. Then she locked her door, gathered her basket, and started to run. She ran and ran as the sun set and the star shone brightly. At last she could run no more. I'll never catch up, she said. I'll never find the baby king. Suddenly, the sky was filled with light, and heavenly angels sang, Glory to all men, the new king is born. La Befana stood up, began to walk, and then run. This is the night of miracles, sang the angels. You must help me, shouted La Befana. Show me the way to Bethlehem. She began to feel lighter and run faster and faster. She was running in the sky. It was a night of miracles. La Befana never caught up. She never found the baby king, but she is still searching. Every year on January 6th, the Feast of the Kings, she runs across the sky, delivering gifts to all of the children while they sleep. Then she takes her broom and sweeps the room clean. After all, says La Befana, I never know which child might be the baby king of Bethlehem.
Good morning, friends, and welcome to the online service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Stony Brook. My name is Lorraine Stidd, and I am happy to be acting as your worship associate today. Our service leader this morning is our minister, Margie Allen. Our director of religious education is Deb Little. May I offer a special welcome to anyone who is visiting us today. We are glad you are here, especially during this time of social isolation. Our services vary in style and content, and we hope you will visit us more than once to get a true sense of who we are as a diverse community of faith. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religion with no fixed creed that everyone must accept. We are guided by our 7 principles and multiple sources of inspiration. You will find information about these on our webpage, UUFSB.org. Let this virtual sanctuary be home this morning. Wherever you are coming to us from and however you are led to join us, you are so welcome. And now some reminders. At the end of our service, we will have a virtual coffee hour. Just stay in this meeting and our talented tech team will make us visible and audible to each other. After this time together this morning, we will be having a congregational meeting. UUFSB members, if you are able to attend this brief but important meeting, please leave the coffee hour and sign back in by clicking on the link on our website in the news feed, or you can also find it posted in the chat. We need a quorum to take a vote. Small group chats, which usually follow our coffee hour, will resume next week. May you find this time together with each other nurturing and enriching.
Let us now enter into the spirit of worship with the sounding of our morning bell. Come ride the sound of this Nepalese, Tibetan, Buddhist bell into our shared experience of sacred space and time. Welcome.
As we light our chalice this morning, we remember that in this new year, as always, we can choose to seek healing for ourselves and to offer healing to others. St. Francis of Assisi reminds us how, in this excerpt from his well-known prayer, let us become instruments of peace. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy.
Lovely, Lorraine, thanks. For the first Sunday of the new year, opening words called New Year's by Dana Gioia. Let other mornings honor the miraculous. Eternity has festivals enough. This is the feast of our mortality, the most mundane and human holiday. On other days, we misinterpret time, pretending that we live in the present moment. But can this blur, this smudgy in-between, this tiny fissure where the future drips into the past, this fly speck we call now to be our true habitat? The present is the leaky palm of water that we skim from the swift, silent river slipping by. The new year always brings us what we want, simply by bringing us along. To see a calendar with every day uncrossed, a field of snow without a single footprint. That's Dana Gioia, New Year's. So January 6th, this coming Wednesday, is in the Christian calendar the Feast of Epiphany, known in many parts of the world as Three Kings Day, because it celebrates the moment when the long-traveling Magi arrived in Bethlehem and finally laid eyes on the newborn child, Jesus, called also Emmanuel, God with us. They were the first non-Jews to bear witness to the central mystery of Christianity. Our opening hymn reminds us of their journey and of the star that showed them the way.
We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us through this perfect night. Frankincense to offer have I, incense owns our deity nigh. Prayer and praising, all are raising, worship God Most High. Love is like its bitter perfume, breathes a life of gathering gloom, sorrowing, sighing, lean Satan, guide us through this perfect night.
I invite you to join me and others now in a time of meditation, reflection, and prayer. Some words, some time for reflection and silence, and then a sweet and simple hymn we don't sing often called Dark of Winter. Peter Winkler and Deede Cook, who just led us in that hymn, will lead us in singing. I hope you'll sing or hum along as we open ourselves to the gifts of these darker months and this opportunity to await in the silence the light of insight. What would it look like for you in your COVID life to create a space for hibernation? Not for sleeping through the months, but for taking time to dream. Some cozy place with books and food and pictures you love, and pens and colored pencils and blank paper and magazines to cut up and paste somewhere else, or a project that involves a life review. Lots of blankets and pillows and hot chocolate or mulled cider. Nothing too bright or too loud, nothing too awake or too asleep. A chance to remember and think and name some things and make good lists and put two and two together, tell stories to yourself, maybe to others. Winter is just naturally a dream time. And we're going to need our dreaming on the other side of this weird, distorted timeline that we're in now. In the silence that's coming now in a second, I invite you to think about a space like that, a time when it could happen, and a routine for dreaming. Other animals all around us are doing it. It's time.
when my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Darkness when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me.
How beautiful. This reading is a poem by David White called The Winter of Listening. No one but me by the fire, my hands burning red in the palms, while the night wind carries everything away outside. All this petty worry, while the great cloak of the sky grows dark and intense round every living thing. What is precious inside us does not care to be known by the mind in ways that diminish its presence. What we strive for in perfection is not what turns us into the lit angel we desire. What disturbs and then nourishes has everything we need. What we hate in ourselves is what we cannot know in ourselves, but what is true to the pattern does not need to be explained. Inside everyone is a great shout of joy waiting to be born. Even with the summer so far off, I feel it grown in me, now and ready to arrive in the world. All those years listening to those who had nothing to say. All those years forgetting how everything has its own voice to make itself heard. All those years forgetting how easily you can belong to everything simply by listening. And the slow difficulty of remembering how everything is born from an opposite and miraculous otherness. Silence and winter has led me to that otherness. So let this winter of listening be enough for the new life I must call my own. It is our spiritual practice to encourage ourselves in generosity by taking an offering that will be shared with our fellowship and an agency doing social justice work. Our Share the Plate recipient for the month of January is Bethel Hobbs Community Farm. Hobbs Farm is owned and operated by the Bethel AME Church in Setauket. A crew of mostly volunteers work 5 acres of land in Centereach. They sell inexpensive organic produce at its farm stand in the summer, give produce to a soup kitchen and food pantry, do educational outreach on healthy eating, and offer plots in the community garden to folks who want a garden. During this time when we cannot pass the plate in person, this is your invitation to continue sending in your much needed pledge payments and contributions to the work of this fellowship and our social justice partners. Please give generously. Details on how to make your contribution and indicate how it should be allocated can be found in the special news feed or on our webpage. It is with deep gratitude that we receive your gifts. Thank you.
There, that was your sermon. We'll move on to the next thing. Oh my God, that was beautiful. Thank you so much to Peter and Deede again. So Jampa, the Tibetan Terrier member of our family, had an epiphany the other day. We haven't given him marrow bones or rawhide chews much over his 8 years because of the anxiety it caused him to be in charge of such a thing. He'd carry it around in a panicked kind of way, looking for a place to hide it. And every few hours he'd unhide it and repeat the search for, I guess, a yet better hiding place. And never once did he seem to consider that his treasure was for chewing on, for enjoying, and it tasted good, that his enjoyment was what actually made this bony-like thing worth hiding. This year I got him a braided rawhide chew for Christmas. The usual pattern of overwhelming concern ensued. A sad padding about the house, bone in mouth, imagining somewhere an unassailably secure deposit box. So finally on New Year's Eve, I decided to see if I could teach him to enjoy the bone. I got down on the floor. Matt and Linda will bear faithful witness to this, and I stole the bone from him. I held it upright as he tried to grab it back between his teeth. I moved it around so he'd keep coming at it. Even at one point or 2 points, pretended to chew on it myself. We were all laughing after a while, everybody but Jampa, because I looked so ridiculous and because it all seemed so silly, futile. In the end, Jampa just took the rawhide and padded off in the usual manner to hide it, we supposed. But it turned out that he settled in the living room to chew on the thing. And he's done that since then. He's gnawed it down halfway. Linda came across it behind the toolbox under her desk in the study yesterday. He's so much more relaxed about the whole thing. He gets it out to chew on it. He had an aha moment. And it really has seemed to free him to enjoy the gift of a good chew. Jampa had an epiphany. He saw through his understanding of something to the true nature of the thing, and his relationship to that thing then changed for the better. The word epiphany actually comes from the ancient Greek word used to describe the recognition that a god had suddenly appeared in the midst of mortal human life. We first see the word in English around 1310. Then, and for about 300 years, it only referred to the Christian Feast of Epiphany with a capital E. And then at that point, in the mid-16th century, anyway, at that point it started to morph again to include the gods of other religions, and eventually also moments of insight and inspiration that just seem to originate someplace beyond the human range of knowing. These days, a working definition of the word epiphany might be an illuminating realization or discovery, often resulting in a personal feeling of elation or awe or wonder. Maya Angelou said it this way: it's the occurrence when the mind, the body, the heart, and the soul focus together and see an old thing in a new way. I like that one. And common to most of the definitions is that the insight, the message, manifests in human life as a course correction. What you have seen changes your life in some significant way. So an epiphany is a profound realization and a resonating feeling and an invitation to risk. An invitation to risk the changes that exploring the experience might bring. Take La Befana. She had her sweeping routine. She'd drawn tight boundaries around how she was willing to relate to the people around her. She had certain gifts. She was a wonderful baker, and she sang lullabies, but for whom and to whom? Did you wonder, as I did, what might have happened to her before this story started? Did she once bake for a family or for a village? What happened? Had she at some point lost a child or more than one to whom she used to sing? What had happened to her that her trust and interest in people had zeroed out? Certainly, grief and fear can create that kind of tightly circumscribed and cranky life. Clearly, her rather obsessive sweeping routine and a predictable daily pattern of working, eating, sleeping, and waking in solitude had kept change at bay for some time, and everything she treasured, safe from pillage. But one day, into her carefully constructed safe zone came a message. First, a strange light, a bright star in the night, perhaps the last observable conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter back in 1226. Then the unfamiliar sound of bells, then a procession of unusual visitors, a question, which way to Bethlehem, and a call, you should come with us, and a sense of belonging. He comes for us, the poor, like you and me. And a challenge, we're bringing him gifts. That, my friends, is the perfect anatomy of an epiphany. David White's poem, Winter Listening, describes this process as what disturbs and then nourishes. Listen to his words again. What we strive for in perfection is not what turns us into the lit angel we desire. What disturbs and then nourishes has everything we need. Inside everyone is a great shout of joy waiting to be born, he writes. And everything is born from an opposite and miraculous otherness. What could be more other to La Befana than a procession of elephants and horses and camels and kings decked out in their regalia? And somehow, out of a crying need that she'd had to move from hiding place to hiding place for years, I imagine, La Befana was able to create a place within her which this disturbance, nested and tended, could become a source of nourishment. Ultimately, she saw her new direction and her limitations. Help me, she called out to the angels in desperation. And she flew. The religious holiday we reckon with today is Epiphany, the day 3 road-weary kings gathered around the newborn Jesus and knew him for the messenger he would become and were themselves changed by that knowing. What capacity do you have to make room for such a disturbance in your own life? How have you insulated yourself in your life from the sounds and the sights that herald an experience of epiphany? What gifts have you sequestered because offering them to others would expose you to something scary? The secular holiday we recognize today is our passage into a particularly welcome new year. Our opening words describe the New Year holiday as, quote, the feast of our mortality, the most mundane and human holiday. And the present moment as, quote, this blur, this smudgy in-between, this tiny fissure where the future drips into the past, the leaky palm of water that we skim from the swift, silent river slipping by. But in the long view of this year, this new year, what we have, as the poet also notes, is what we want. Quote, a calendar with every day uncrossed, a field of snow without a single footprint. And this is where Epiphany awaits us, hoping we will walk towards good trouble when it shows up, when it rings out, when it processes by and issues an invitation, when it lifts us off our feet and points to a new mission in a world that needs our joy and our gifts. Amen. Now, the music you're about to hear is the arranged, orchestrated, produced, and mixed voices of 140 singers and musicians from New York City, bringing us How Can I Keep From Singing, with our own UU words. Now, there are a bunch of Unitarian Universalists in those little windows, but this is, as a whole, a mixed crowd of faithful people. I have found it so moving to listen closely to how the music works and to look into the faces of these beneficent strangers. I don't know them at all. Can't tell the UUs from the others. But I feel, nevertheless, my kinship with all of them. I see their joy, their devotion to this collaboration and its message. And I'm glad to know that these people who sang for us with all their hearts, even though they didn't know us either, are in the world right now with us. It gives me hope to meet them here and to feel again with you the weight of their presence, the force of their love.
No storm can shake my inmost heart, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? grows thin. I see the blue above it, and day by day this pathway smooths. Since first I learned to love it, no storm can shake my inmost calm. I hear the music ringing, it sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? 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 Keep singing. Keep singing. Keep singing. Keep singing.
The twins that were playing the piano there are Adam and Matt Pod, who were the creators of that. So closing words. As I was pulling together into one pile all the bits and pieces that were asking to be part of this service, I remembered a little poem that I wrote when I lived for a few years across the Sound from here in Weston. It seemed to me that it might fit in somehow, but it took a while. Turns out it wanted to be closing words, but it took forever, it seems like, to let me know. So this poem offers a few words about what it takes to welcome both the ache and the promise in a curiously disrupting event, one that comes out of nowhere and demands your cooperation in the realignment, the reorientation of your life. These are our closing words. In a dream, which by the way I really had, I'll start over. In a dream, I caught a robin's egg as it fell from the nest, sky blue boat of breath and wings, and it did not break in the surprise of my palm. It did not break because as it dropped, I dropped my hand, so there was no falling, only coming to rest shell and skin on the thin, unlikely cushion of yes, perfect timing.
Come down, O love divine, seek that this soul of mine, and visit it with thine own ardor glowing. O Comforter, draw near, within my heart appear, and kindle it thy holy flame bestowing. Oh, let it freely burn, till earthly passions turn to dust and ashes in his heat consuming. And let his glorious light shine ever on my sight, and clothe me round the while my path illumining. As soon as glory swung, for which the soul will long, shall far outpass the path of human telling. For none can guess its grace, till we become the place wherein the Holy Spirit makes our dwelling.
We extinguish this flame, but what it has sparked within us continues to glow, connecting us invisibly. We are one, and from every window our light shines.
One of the stranger things that happen around the world during Epiphany celebrations of the Feast of Epiphany is the blessing of water. I can't tell you all the permutations of that, but in some cases it involves throwing a cross into the water and then a bunch of men dive into the icy, cold winter ocean to retrieve it. At any rate, that's what inspires our benediction. Lucille Clifton's blessing the boats at St. Mary's. A prayer for you. May the tide that is entering even now the lip of our understanding carry you out beyond the face of fear. May you kiss the wind, then turn from it, certain that it will love you back. May you open your eyes to water, water waving forever, and may you, in your innocence, sail through this to that. Amen, my friends.
Thank you.